Hey guys, what's up? How you doing? Switch to the webcam. There we go. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the live stream. So this is like the fourth one I've done so far, second week in a row. So I'm planning on doing these on a regular basis. If you like Blender, you want an excuse to work alongside somebody or just find some time in the evenings to do stuff with your own projects, tune in, put me on the background, watch me if you want, and hopefully we can share some time together and I can get to know you guys better, and we can share an awesome Blender experience. So I'm going to be working on some of my own projects in these live streams. And before we get started, I want to share a really cool project that I've been working on and something that I just launched that you may not be aware of. So let me switch over to my monitor here and pull this up. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, this is my new online Blender learning academy called the Orange Guild. So it's theorangeguild.com. And if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check it out. It's pretty cool. You can sign up for a free account, and I'm going to be adding free tutorials as we go. And you can also access all of my existing training from this website. So I'm just going to do a quick tour and then we'll get into the rest of the live stream. So I'm not going to bore you guys for the whole stream with this, but got to get it in there for you guys. So this is the home page. You can sign up for an account. If you want to check out the membership, you can go to this link and it will tell you all about the online courses that I offer. Here's all of the benefits that you're going to get: 24/7 access. You can download all of the project files so you can watch online and then follow along in Blender and the courses. No matter who you are, it's good for you. It's $19 a month, or you can pay $199 a year for the membership. And so it's a really good deal if you're into Blender training and you just want a constant flow of tutorials and courses. It's a really good deal for you guys. So these are all the courses I currently have to offer. You can buy them separately, which can get pretty expensive, or again, just sign up for the membership that's monthly. And there you go. So it's going to be really, really cool. There's going to be courses, obviously, but we're also going to do ongoing mentorship. So you can jump in and ask questions and I'll give you answers. And like this right here, I'll give you feedback on maybe your 3D renders or whatever you need. So that is kind of what we're working on. Theorangeguild.com. Check it out, sign up for the mailing list, and there we go. That's my little plug. Okay, so before we get into tonight, if this is the first time you're tuning in, what I've been doing is working on a 3D illustration for this month. And so my goal this month is to get all of the modeling done for this 3D illustration. And so as you can see on the screen right now, this is the concept painting that I designed, and I've just been working my way through all these little models to try to get things worked out. This doesn't include every model I'm going to put in the scene, but it has a good idea of the feel and the vibe I'm trying to go for with the mood and the atmosphere, and it gives a basic layout and composition for the scene. So this is going to be a still image 3D render, and what we've been working on the past few streams have been some of these smaller items, and right now we're working on the teaspoon right here. So I like to model most of my stuff a little bit more photorealistically than sort of stylized. And so as we jump in here, you'll see kind of where we're going with this. I want to show you where we've got to so far with the scene. And I jumped in today and kind of color coded all of the objects separately. I've got these linked in with separate blend files, so I can update them as I go. And this is one giant scene file that's a library that I'm pulling these in and linking them from. And so I've kind of added separate materials to all the individual pieces so we can just visually see some separation. This is the camera angle you can see right here. And then as we get into this, you're going to see us go in and detail out in each of these individual models before we jump into texturing. So I will be doing a full course on aspects of this 3D illustration as we get into that. I'm not sure when that's going to come out, but I'm working hard to get the scene up to a place where I feel like it meets the rest of my portfolio standards. So that'll come after I finish the scene, and then I'll go back and decide what aspects that maybe you're going to be good for you guys to learn from. So if you have some opinions of things that you want to hone in on as I work on these live streams, let me know in the comments the kinds of topics you want to cover in this project, and then I'll be sure to make a note of that and then come circle back around when I'm teaching the course and dial in on those a little bit further. So let's jump into this little set of objects here tonight. And I think I'm just gonna work on sculpting details into this this teaspoon right here. So I'm gonna open up the T file. And if I switch back into here, you can see I've got everything here grouped together. And so we've just duplicated off this original spoon here into a separate layer, and we've started to jump in here and sculpt some of these details in. So right now it's really rough. We're just blocking in basic, you know, sort of flourish details and into this spoon. So that's what we're gonna be working on. All right, so I'm gonna set up back into my sculpting workflow here a little bit, and let's get going. One other thing I want to mention is I got some comments from people that some people liked the music and some people didn't. And so I've got it turned on tonight, and I turned it down quite a bit. So if it gets annoying in the background, let me know in the comments. And I've already had somebody tell me that they couldn't hear me talk over the music and the music was annoying. So if that's the case, leave me some comments, and you know, obviously, you know, the majority is gonna win out here. So if you like the music, tell me to keep it. If you don't like it, tell me not to keep it, and I'll get rid of it for future streams. Okay, so I'm using pretty much the default Blender 2.79 install Wacom tablet for pressure sensitivity, obviously. And I'm trying to decide from reference where we're gonna go with this the spoon details here. So if I pull this over and show you kind of what I'm looking at here, I've been using Pinterest to pull all my reference from, which I really, really like. And I'm not exactly copying what's there for this spoon, but I'm trying to get the same general feel for these, you know, Victorian, European style flourishing that's happening on this like fine silverware, you know. So that's what I'm looking at for this reference. So as I get in here, I'm just gonna be kind of jumping in and trying to block in the big overall structures as we go, and then deciding whether or not, you know, things are kind of working. We're already getting in a little cropped in terms of the detail, and so I don't want to zoom. We're already a little bit too fine detailed, and so rather than get in here and, you know, zoom further in like this, I want to stay further out, because last time I think I got in here and I was spending a little bit too much time doing that. I'm not a sculptor traditionally, so I'm more of a hard surface subdivision surface modeler, and so I'm very much newer to sculpting and trying to make sure that I'm getting things blocked out correctly as I go. I do know we want to stay as wide, as long as possible until we need to start zooming in. And so I have been using dynamic topology, but right now I'm going to keep that off so that we can, you know, kind of just focus on tightening up what's already there. So one of the other things to be aware of is that there's already a lot of geometry there, and we need to make sure that we are happy with the way things are as we go. So I've got subdivide collapse turned on when I'm using Dino Topo, and we've been switching between relative detail for zooming in and out, and then between that and brush detail. So in terms of where I'm at right now, I'm gonna keep this on relative detail, and I think I want to kind of simplify what's already there, because it's already getting a little hairy to work with. So I'm going to, it's going to look a little bit more messy as we get started here, but I'm trying to keep the poly count a little lower as we get into this. Okay. So I have y-axis symmetry turned on, and that's gonna automatically mirror as I sculpt across the spoon for me, which is really helpful. And I'm just alternating between, right now I've got sculpt draw, and I'm smoothing out and trying to deepen this, this sort of canyon we have in the design right here. It's tough for me as I get in here not to start focusing on how unrefined things are. And I know from experience on previous sculpts that that can get out of hand rather quickly. So I don't want to go in and refine too early if I don't need to. So yeah, that's not what I want to do. I think we are possibly dealing with too much geometry right there. So hold on. Make sure. Let's go back to our sculpt draw. I'm gonna bring the strength down to something really low and then zoom in here. Maybe not that low. Let's smooth this out. And yeah, it's gonna let us kind of reduce the number of polys here. There we go. And I just want to sort of make sure there's not a weird looking silhouette happening there. So let's switch back to grab. Pull that in a little bit. Got some viewers I see. Feel free to leave me a comment, ask me a question as I go. I'm here for you guys just as much as I'm here for myself. So let's go back up a little bit more. I think there's still too much going on here. It's a little better. Okay. Now when we grab, it should be a little easier and quicker to move this around. A little bit. Okay, one thing I'm gonna turn on is, all right, it's already on, fast navigate. That helps sometimes. There we go, just pulling that in a little bit more of a pleasing edge there. So the goal here, not that I'm doing a great job so far, is to move quickly around the areas you want to add detail. And so rather than jumping in and you know, just hunting in on one area and staying there, you want to stay, you know, out, observe what's going on in terms of where you need to add detail, zoom in, add it, and then, you know, again, re-observe the overall landscape and make sure you're not getting too crazy too fast. So I'm gonna add some little embellishments here. Play with this a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to crease this up a little bit. And in this case, I want to use crease instead of pinch because we're going to go around the outside edges of these. So I'm going to get a little bit more on this one. Okay. I want to go too much, so lower the strength here a little bit. Something I've noticed about the tablet, and it might just be my tablet, not sure, is that sometimes if I just sit here and hunt, it doesn't really want to add clay. I don't know if that's because I don't have accumulate on or what, but maybe if I leave that on, it won't be so so weird. So I'm looking for a little bit of uniformity here in terms of how these are shaping into the side here. I want them to be kind of the same. Best way to do this would probably be to create like an alpha or something like that. But in this case, I just want something quick. So we can test our size here a little bit. Turn the strength up pretty high, and then I'm zooming in a little bit more so I get a little bit more resolution here. And we're gonna do something like that. Okay. So I might smooth a little bit around these other edges. There we go. Play with the inflate or deflate a little bit here. Okay, so I'm switching between smoothing, and then sometimes I'm holding control instead of just left clicking and dragging. And yes, it is a spoon. I just saw your comment. And that's allowing me to kind of play with the give and take as I go. So there we go. All right. All right, let's get the rest of these kind of in a better place. So there we go. Inflating right now, kind of smoothing out afterwards. Trying to keep the same basic zoom level as we inflate these. That way I'm not adding a gigantic difference in the number of polys. So let's play with the crease again. Actually flatten this one down a little bit more. So my goal for tonight is to try to get this spoon in a good place so we can move on. And I'm also working on my basic sculpting fundamentals. So my goal is not to be loading in a bunch of alphas and textures to help me along, because I want to try to get a little bit better at refining by hand. And typically there are faster ways to do what I'm doing, but again, it all depends on what you're doing things for. So trying to work on my visual eye and dial things in. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, let's increase this. So obviously the idea would be that somebody came along and you know, impressed these or molded these out of something like sterling silver, maybe something like that. And so that's kind of what we're trying to mimic here. All right, so it's a game of give and take. You just want to get in and smooth and add detail, and it's a process of layering. So every now and then zoom out, make sure you're not getting too crazy. Okay, there we go. Trying to smooth out the lumps a little bit as we go. There we go. All right, let's even this out a little bit more. Okay. Let's go crease one more time. And let's pull this in a little bit. All right, so from back here, obviously, it's a lot cleaner looking, and that really kind of is the point, because ultimately we'll go back, we'll retopo this whole thing, and then make a normal map for use later. But getting in here and doing those types of things is interesting because it adds a layer of detail that shows that it's kind of handmade, or that maybe it was worn down or things like that. So it's not going to feel as you know, manufactured in the sense that it's not a tank that was on an assembly line, right? These, if you look at fine china in the manufacturing process, it is mostly touched by human hands the whole way through the process in some way. And especially since we're going for something that was probably, you know, done up in the 1920s, somewhere in there, we are gonna have a lot more of that, you know, it's going to be handled by somebody as it's being built and crafted, actually. All right. Okay. So let's define a little bit more of the curvature down here. Gonna inflate these a little bit more. Then by holding control, I'm deflating some of this area here. We'll crease these up a little bit more. So let's lower this way down. Okay, here we go. Pulling this in a little tighter now. I'm gonna go super small, so I'm gonna smooth this back out a little bit more. Start over. And what that's done already is added in a lot of geometry, and so if we want to pull that back, we can zoom out a little bit since we've got that relative detail turned on. And now that crease is going to be a little bit thicker. Okay. So right here, we want to get rid of some of this clay that's built up here. So I've switched back into the draw tool, and now I'm just taking, with control, I'm drawing a big chunk out of that and smooth it back out. So now you can already see we're getting a lot more definition in here around the edges of this. So let's use maybe pinch a little bit right here. Kind of pull that in a little bit, maybe even around the outside edges. As we go around this shape, I can pinch this into place. Okay, let's go to the smooth tool real fast, and let's kind of see what our settings are here. So I'm gonna bring this down to something like 0.3. And that way, anytime we use the smooth tool, it's gonna be a little less harsh. So let's see, what can we do? Yeah, let's crease again. Let's really get in here and kind of dig along the side here. See if we can find an angle here to work from. Okay. And play with the clay strips a little bit here. Clay strips is really nice for adding in a lot more material back to the model. If you feel like you've kind of smoothed away that contour a little bit and you want to add some of that back, clay tools is a good tool to use. So I want to dig into this right here, and so we can go to fill deepen and select deepen here, and then when we get into here and select this, it'll just kind of sink this in for us. So this is good if you've already defined like a boundary and you don't want to you know, sort of mess with the crease or whatever you've already got in there. Fill and deepen can do wonders for maintaining that as you're trying to you know, play with how that's working. So I want to get further in here and then smooth back out. You can see that detail's been added in, extra geometry. There we go. Pull back out a little bit, smooth this whole area back out. Okay. Might even do the same thing over here. And then go back and smooth. And then even back here, we can go towards the middle of this and then just deepen this entire area right here. Smooth. Okay. And that's kind of a good way to work. Start smoothing one area and move around as you add that detail. And then as you're moving around, you'll know which areas you've already kind of gone through and refined, because the big blocky areas will, you know, obviously still be kind of cruddy looking. And then when you zoom out, you'll have areas like this that are kind of cleaned up already. And it's up to you to decide, you know, how much you really need to make that pop. And in this case, I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time worrying about this end of it because we are going to need to add the refinements on the other end as well. So let's go ahead and finish up refining these main pieces here, and then let's see if we're ready to move on. Okay, so one of the things we can do is zoom in here, flatten these areas out. And one of the things we can also play with is the fall off curve. And so depending on how you want your stroke to appear as it goes down, you can play with this curve, and using this particular straight line across, it really doesn't have any kind of smoothing applied to it. So the default is to have it set to this curve right here, which is kind of a nice smooth fall off. If you want more of a round fall off, you can choose this one, and it will kind of curve the stroke a little bit for you. So you can see what that's doing. So I'm gonna undo this a little bit till we get further back here. One of the things, if you've been tuning into my other streams so far, you've seen me already forget to save. So don't forget to save if you're working on this kind of stuff. Let's see. Let's leave it this one. Check our strength here a little bit. Okay. So that's a little bit too strong for what I want to do. So let's back this off. There we go. It's much better. So now we have a chance to kind of flatten this a little bit, smooth it a little bit, flatten it a little bit, smooth it a little bit. And that's what we want to do. That way we're maintaining control as we go. Otherwise, this could easily get out of our hands. Okay, smooth here. Speeding up a little bit so I can kind of move forward and get this done. So we're gonna do the same thing here that we did down there, and gonna crease. Okay, let's undo that. Take this a little slower. So rounding this out a little bit more because as we've got in here and played with it a little bit, it's losing its sort of bead-like shape. So I want to fix that a little bit as we go. Let's define that outer perimeter a little bit. And if it gets a little too lumpy, remember you can always zoom out and with that relative detail setting on in the Dino Topo, you can smooth from this distance, and it's going to remove some of that geometry for you. Or you can always, just left click and it'll take some out for you as well. There we go. Okay, so let's get back in there with the crease. And I'm trying to remember the profile right here as we go. And we want to try to get that as smooth as possible as we go around this curve, so it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And stay away from those big lumpy shapes as much as we can. And as you're sculpting here by hand, it's going to be difficult to do that perfectly, but refinement is always going to be, kind of the solution for that. So creasing will go in, pinching will go out. And so if we want to kind of collect on the outside edge, we can do this. And that'll kind of push that for us. You can see what that's doing. And if you have trouble with the pin in terms of keeping things steady, you can turn on what's called like a lazy mouse effect. And I don't remember if it's this one. Yeah, that's it. So smooth stroke is what it's called here. And you start drawing, and then it'll basically slowly drag that behind your cursor so that you're not having to maintain this perfect, stroke as you go. So you can play with those settings there to change that around. Okay. Let's turn this up. Go back and play with this a little bit more. What do I want to use? Let's see. Flatten will probably do the trick. So I don't like how far out that outer curve is happening. So I'm going to flatten the inside of this and then go back and kind of play with how that's looking. This can also crease your edges if you, if you go on one side here and then you go down to the top and do this on the edge, it will also give you a crease. So different tools can be used for sort of the same purpose depending on how you like to work. All right, so as we see edges that are wobbly that we need to go back and fix, we can play with how that is tweaked and fix those up. So all right, so it's one way to do it. Kind of like that. The crease or the pinch works really well too, but it's in my opinion, a little harder to control than just kind of manually smushing those edges together. So it just depends on, you know, what you like to do. Okay. Let's deepen this a little bit. I'm gonna turn that smooth stroke on. And so right now the dyno topology set to where it is with the relative detail, that's gonna, at this zoom level, kind of undo all of that detail. So I'm gonna jump down to the relative detail, let's switch it to brush size. And now it should react differently as we kind of go down through here. So you can see what that's doing. Brush detail is a different kind of detail setting from relative detail. Detail size here is in pixels, detail size here is in percentage. So if we go to 5%, we're gonna get an even finer amount of detail being added there. And of course, you wanna be careful with that because it can get out of control pretty quickly. So you can see what that's doing there. So now I just smooth. There we go. Let's see what that's doing. So I'm going to turn off the smooth stroke. And then I'm just going to leave the settings where they are. I'm going to deepen this up. And let's switch this back to Sculpt Draw. Hold Control. And I want to undo that, lower my brush size. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's change. Let's see, let's change the detail percentage a little bit more. Switch back to relative detail. That's better. Okay. You'll also notice that the more geometry that you add to your sculpture, the harder it is to get it to make big movements. So right now, because the poly count is lower, if I want to go in and carve into this mesh down the middle of this, it's a lot easier to get bigger, you know, canyons carved into this this shape. If I have the detail turned up, it's adding so much geometry in there that it just makes it impossible to make any, you know, giant changes. And even if you could, even if you choose something like grab to kind of move all that around, your system just starts chugging because it can't, it just can't keep up with all of that. One of the things we could play with is we could play with layer here and then set a depth that we want to maintain all the way through, and then try to achieve that. So height here is currently set to 0.4, and we can lower that pretty low and just kind of see what happens when we play with this. It's still too high. This is currently going off the area plane. So if I go down to 0.01, let's check off front faces only. You can see what that does. So probably not what we want right here. Let's see. I don't use layer that often when I'm messing around with sculpting. Let's play with the height a little more. Let's see what it's doing there. So what I'm trying to get rid of right now are these big giant, you know, up and down hills in this this section, and looks like we're adding. That's why. So I'm gonna check off accumulate. And we're gonna get rid of these as we go. Maybe 0.005. Okay, so let's smooth this out now. Switch this to the top view and just kind of drag here. Okay. Not sure if I want to keep playing with layer or not. Okay. All right, let's go back to kind of what we were doing. Let's pull back a little bit so we get that carved in the way we want. Change this to curve here. Going the opposite way. There we go. So now that we're zoomed out, let's start playing with the way this is working. It is easier to get this kind of carved into the middle here. There we go. All right, now let's flatten these back down so we kind of get a sharper edge there. There we go. All right, now let's crease up a little bit, or pinch actually. Let's turn, okay, we got smooth stroke turned on. There we go. Okay, let's grab this section a little bit. See if we can move it up. It's good. Let's go back to flatten. Too strong. Okay, let's move around a little more, flatten this out. Whoa, not what I wanted. Pinch. Okay. Let's see right here. And then lower that down for that minimum distance. So we'll start, there we go. Okay, so pull this back up. Start up here. All right. Let's flatten this up a little bit, smooth it out. Go. All right. All right, smooth that out a little bit. There we go. All right, so there's a lot more we could do there, but I think I'm happy with that. Most of this is going to be submerged anyways. So I think the last thing I'm going to do on the front end of the spoon here is play a little bit more with the rim in terms of the creasing here. So I'm going to flatten this out. Okay, I want to make sure I do this smartly and in a subtle way. So rather than using relative detail, I'm going to choose this and I'm going to make that a lot smaller. And the goal here is to see the whole rim in, you know, one stroke, one big angle, so that we can dial this in from all at once. So this is going to take a couple of practice runs probably. Yeah. Pull this further in this way. Okay. I think that detail size is probably too much. Let's bring that up to 6. It's looking a little better. So luckily, with that smooth stroke applied, this is a lot easier than it might look. So I'm just taking my tablet and ballparking where that needs to go, paying attention to the circle as I'm leading and the back end of that stroke. And there we go. So if we need to, we can flatten out the tip of this a little more. Turn that smooth stroke off, and then take the smooth tool and smooth this out a little bit. Again, this probably won't matter because we're not going to see the spoon in this particular illustration that close up, but just so we have an option. Please don't crash. Okay. Save. Whew. All right. So now I'm gonna smooth this out a little bit. It's chugging quite a bit because that's a lot of geometry there. But also got my brush size turned way up. Undo that. Okay. I'm gonna leave that for now. I may come back and smooth that out a little bit before I'm done with the spoon. All right, well, we got like an hour left for tonight's stream. That's something else I want to ask you guys about. If you didn't tune in earlier, I'm experimenting with all my settings. So music, on or off, and you know, whether or not you guys want to see certain things from me, let me know. Let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to accommodate you guys. So, sorry if this stream tonight is a little more quiet than normal. I'm having to concentrate a little bit harder because I don't sculpt as much, so thinking a lot more. All right, I'm not crazy. As we're moving on to the bottom end of this spoon, I'm not crazy about the extreme bend that I left in this before we got into sculpting. So I'm gonna play with a lattice to fix that a little bit. So if you haven't messed with lattices much, this will be a nice quick tutorial on that. So I'm adding it in object mode. It's placed in the middle here. So I'm just encompassing what I want to kind of tweak in terms of the overall shape. And the idea here is to jump into the lattice settings, and you want to add as many subdivisions as you think you're going to need to kind of warp this into place. So in this case, I'm doing a really simple fix here, but I want to have at least a couple of divisions across the length of this spoon handle. And then what I can do is grab the spoon and then shift right click to select the lattice itself. Control P, lattice deform instead of a regular parent. That's going to add a modifier to our spoon here with the lattice as the object. And now what I can do is if I jump into edit mode with the lattice, then I can warp the spoon a little bit. So I think what I did before was, whoops, I want to do that. Cursor to selected, okay. And then make sure we're going around the median points. I'm going to select these up here, and then we want to go around the cursor actually. So select that. And now we can sort of work on unbending this spoon. So I'm select this, Shift S, cursor to selected. There we go. And now if I select this, I can work on that. So it didn't do much. If we take the spoon here and we turn the lattice on and off, you can see what it's doing. But enough to kind of tweak things and make a difference. So all we have to do is, we can leave it live if you want, but you can't really sculpt on it that way. At least I don't really want to try. So I'm going to apply that. Now I can get rid of the lattice and let's keep sculpting. All right. Switching into sculpt mode. Okay. So I'm gonna bring the reference over real fast so we can get an idea of where we're at. So this is kind of the area we're gonna be working on now. And again, I'm not gonna duplicate the details exactly or try to. The goal is just to get something similar. This is a bit more important because it's the part that's gonna be sticking out of the teacup. And so you're gonna see it in the illustration quite a bit more. This you may or may not see depending on how thick the tea is. But got some interesting things happening here. We're gonna need some extra meshes, kind of blending into the spoon handle on the side. And so we'll look at a way to put those in, and then we can blend the sculpt on top of the spoon handle right here for these flowers and things like that. So let's take a look. All right, lower this down. All right, so one of the things I'm gonna may use a little bit tonight is this Sculpt Tools add-on. You can search this in Google and Sculpt Tools Blender, and the first link that you find on GitHub is the free add-on that you can install. Just download it, install it, and it's a pretty cool add-on. So not sure if I'm gonna need it tonight, but I might. So we can play with this a little bit and see what it gets us. So one of the things we haven't played with much in this this stream is the mask. Mask is pretty cool, and what I'm gonna need down at this end a bit more is some geometry. So I'm gonna pick, let's pick flatten. Let's turn the strength down to something pretty low, and then we will go down to brush detail. Make sure that is something fairly small. Then I'm going to paint over this end and then smooth. And if we were to switch into wireframe, you can see how much detail we've just added. So it's quite a bit. So just want top half of the spoon handle to be pretty dense, and the reason for that is so that I can get a tighter mask here. So let's go ahead and lower that down. And what I'm going to play with a little bit tonight is the extract. So just to give you an idea of kind of what this is going to do, again, save real fast because sometimes this doesn't work. Get in here with the mask and draw on this. There we go. Undo that. Here we go. Okay, so draw right here. Trying to get a silhouette kind of burned in here that we want to grab from the spoon. And right now I'm adding to this mask. And if I hold Control, once again, I can subtract. So we can pretty easily dial in a pleasing shape here that we want to pull from the spoon. And let's say, let's get something interesting here. Let's say we're happy with this. What we can do is I'm gonna hit Control-I to invert the mask. There we go. And then if I jump back to the sculpt tools, usually I can hit extract and it will try to actually create a separate piece of geometry for that piece of the sculpture that we've masked out. So let's see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't crash. We'll find out. It's always exciting to see what happens. How you guys doing in the stream? You guys working on any projects or got any questions? Let me know. I'm listening. I'm actually streaming on YouTube and Twitch and Picarto. So if you guys are interested in seeing me in multiple places, I have channels on all three of those sites. Yeah, this is maybe a bad idea. Looks like this may not respond. I'm gonna give this just a little bit longer and then I'm gonna kill this. We don't actually have that much geometry right now, so I'm kind of surprised this is doing this, but who knows? Sometimes even just switching off symmetry will, you know, prevent it from screwing up. Okay, so interesting here. Looks like when we inverted, it messed up and did the opposite of what we want to do. So yeah, that's not what we wanted. Okay, so what do I need to do? Can I kill this in object mode and start over? Yeah, okay. All right, so don't invert the mask. Let's jump into sculpt mode. Let's try this one more time. Oh, good. It's already there. Control-I, inverts. So we're back to the original. Now let's try and extract. Maybe this will be a little faster. It's funny. You never know what you're going to get messing around with tools you learn. So there we go. Okay, so before I start moving around and screw this up more than it needs to be, we're going to play with this a little bit. So I'm going to play this down to 0.001. Excuse me. 0.001 so that it's not shooting really far off of that spoon. Just want a little bit of a raised mesh for those decorations. And we'll just play with this and see if we can get something working. I think the best bet is going to be to go back in and add add separate meshes as we go. So maybe 0.005. Shout out to my wife who's tuning in and watching the stream right now. So, hey, babe. All right, yeah. So that's a little better. So again, the more geometry you add into this when you select the mask, the more smooth this is going to be. And the great thing about this is that it's added as a separate mesh on top of what's already there. So you're not destructively sort of messing up the underlying geometry. It's something you can work on and blend right back into the way that's looking. So one more time, tweak this a little bit. I'm not really sure what the smooth iterations does. We might play with that a little bit. Again, I don't want to press my luck. I feel lucky that it worked. So I have my fair share of crashes, as I'm sure you guys do. All right, so we got solid, single-sided, flat. What if we turn this smooth iterations up to 10? Wonder what that does. I suppose there's some documentation somewhere on this, probably in the GitHub if I was gonna look. That's where I'd start. See what happens. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like that's just smoothing the outer border a little bit. Offset might be something interesting that can help us out. In this case, I'm not really going to worry about it because, whether it goes into the spoon or it doesn't, it's not really going to matter. In fact, we might just go ahead and get rid of this mesh and start a whole new set separately. All right, so now that we've got this separated out, I'm going to jump back into object mode, make sure we have the right mesh selected before we get started. So when I move that around, you can see what it did. Spoon by itself is intact, and it just added this separate mesh we can play with. So let's jump into sculpt mode. And now if we're just working on this, you can see we can isolate that. It's one solid piece of geometry, so that's pretty cool. And once again, we can jump in and now we can, add geometry as we need to. And I think I'm gonna switch this back to, let's do relative detail, 4. There you go. Yeah, so you can see what that's doing. So what we can do is before we start smoothing at all, just make one pass where we go all the way around and make sure we touch with the flatten a little bit before we smooth. And that's going to let us kind of add some details to that edge. So there we go. Number 2, we turn the strength of the flatten way down, so we can do that. And so we're going to want to turn this back up a little bit. There we go. And one of the other things we could do is we could extract a big block of, clay like this. And then rather than spending a lot of time cleaning up those edges, once we've got a little bit more geometry, as we do on this end, we could come in and like sort of slice the extra bit off. So if I were to come in with this flatten, and once again, let's crank this back down to something really low. I'm gonna undo. So zooming in here, because we've got relative detail turned on, smooth that out. You can see all the geometry we have to work with. Now, if I were to jump back into these sculpt tools, there's a setting down here for grease pencil, and that's to affect the grease cut, which is grayed out right now. If you hold D on the keyboard and draw, you will get a grease pencil stroke. So if we did something like that, you'll get a grease pencil stroke, and then you can use that to start cutting in your mesh here. So to do that, you got to switch back into object mode, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that grease pencil stroke right there. Figure a view that we're happy to cut with right here. Then once again, let's hold D. Let's make a cut. So you got a nice smooth stroke right there. Grease cut is what you want to use. And let's see if we can get this to work. Let's try that. There we go. So now we've caught both of these cut in half, and you can see it's gone ahead and filled that in for us. So this can be an easy way to get a hunk of clay, so to speak, and then separate that back out so you can get a nice silhouette. So you can delete that. We jump over here. Once again, let's draw a stroke. Something like that. I don't know if you can do multiples. Might be asking too much. But maybe. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna undo that. Let's just do this one at a time. So we'll grease cut that. Okay, so that didn't work. Interesting. So it doesn't always work. It's not perfect. And in this case, I'm sure we can play with some of these settings. I'm not really sure what they do. In this case, we might just need more geometry to make this work, but it worked right there. Let's see if we can get one more. It's so weird how sometimes it does what it's supposed to do, and then other times it doesn't. Let's see if we can do something else with different kind of stroke. So one of the things we could do is do a line from here to here. See if that does what we want. It's not cutting. Let's keep trying a little bit more. Nope. All right, whatever. Okay, so you can see kind of how that works. So let's get rid of these. And get back into some sculpting. So what I ended up doing up here towards the top was I used, to jump back into sculpt mode, I used the snake hook tool to kind of pull some geometry off right here. And so clear this mask real fast. Okay. So with this active, and hopefully this works, yeah, you can see what the snake hook tool does for us. So depending on what you're trying to do, that can be a kind of a fast way to work. One of the other things we do if you don't want to pull off those, like extract a piece of geometry like we were just saying, is you can also, you can mask like we did before. And then what you can do is use that layer tool. You can add to this. Here we do want to invert the mask. So we'll invert and make sure we set the height to something fairly shallow. Clear that mask. And that can be a really quick way to kind of pull some harder shapes off the surface of that spoon. All right, enough messing around. Let's play a little bit more with how this is gonna look. Okay, so we'll clear this mask. Save this one more time, jump into object mode. Okay, let's see how to block in some stuff that we want to add. Okay, once again, just to remind you guys, I'm looking at this section right here, the spoon, and that's kind of what I'm pulling from. So I'm gonna center this up, maybe add, I don't want to get too specific. Let's start with the plane. Let's do the front side here. Switch this back to median point. Okay. All right, so subdivide this a little bit. And I'm gonna try to quickly get something kind of blocked in that'll work. What I'm looking at are the biggest masses on the spoon to get started, and I just want to make sure that I have what I need to get those blocked in. So I'm using proportional edit now to kind of shape this into place. Turn this off. And okay, so this is quick and messy, but it's all we need to kind of get going. Okay. Okay, so we got this one going this way, this one going this way. It's a little bigger. There we go. Now it looks like these are sort of based in this edge here going all the way down, and they're keeping that straight line sort of tapering back this way. So it's kind of getting further out at this angle as it goes back. There we go. Okay. So there'll be some more fancy flourishes and stuff going on in there as we get in and sculpt that out. And let's see if there's anything else we need to pull as a separate mesh so we can get in here and start getting going. I'm gonna add a cube. Okay, this is gonna be more for the kind of swirly flourish coming off the end of the spoon here. So I just want to kind of block this in into place. Do something like that. Might even let's grab these faces here. Might even extrude something off the end like that. So again, here we go, big mass for this end here, and all these little details and holes and everything else can, you know, kind of be added or pushed away. So for the proportional edit down here, I want to only mess with the connected geometry, so not this over here, and that's how we're gonna do that. So there we go. Okay. Let's see if we like the way that's coming off the end of that spoon. It's decent. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is attempt to kind of pull these faces back into the mesh. Once again, I want to choose connected. And all of this will then be, sort of blended and connected to the spoon. Here, it's still going to be a separate object, but we want to, try to get most of the work done in this block-in phase, so that it's actually kind of melded to the spoon as it needs to be, and then blending that into the rest of the mesh will be a lot easier once we kind of have that worked out. So I'm going to select these back faces here. Make sure we leave the edges alone. And pull those into the mesh. Just like that. So obviously if these were melded, cast or whatever, as even as separate sculpted objects onto this spoon, it would have to be connected somewhere to get that to go into the side. So can't have a bunch of dangling pieces of this just hanging off. And the cool thing about this is, like, even though this is going to look messy blocking this in, we can smooth all of the the transitions and everything out as we go. So it's not really a problem. All right, so now I'm gonna mirror this over across. So I'm gonna center that cursor right there. Shift-Y, Y, or SY, -1. Let's flip the normals. There we go. Okay. So that is probably all we need for that block in to kind of work to our advantage. And let's go ahead and duplicate that, move it to another layer. I'm actually going to move that to the back layer. Okay, so now we can jump in and play with sculpting these, or we can sculpt the spoon. So I'm not sure how far I'll get on this tonight. My goal is to go to 9, but let's see. Okay, so immediately I know I'm going to want to subdivide this up because there's no geometry here to work with for sculpting. So in the sculpt add-on that we were just talking about, we've got this remesh option. We do want to preserve the shape in this case. So we can select remesh, and it's going to try to subdivide that up. Now, obviously, in this case, we didn't have enough selected in terms of the subdivision count. So we're going to undo that. There we go. And let's try this again. Change that to 1. Still not enough. Maybe this will work better in object mode. Okay. Looks like we're going to need to go deeper. Hopefully not too deep. So I want to add enough to get going, and then we can dial back the sharp edges, smooth all this out, and get going. too much, and it's gonna obviously crash. So there we go. It's quite a bit, so we're gonna want to dial this back pretty fast. So let's go into sculpt mode. Okay. Let's see. Let's make sure we have our Y symmetry on. Okay. What are we using for dynamic topology? Turn this on. We'll do relative detail and we'll zoom out to, dial back some of this geometry because it's pretty dense right now. We're looking at 12 million phases. That's a lot. Especially for a spoon. We're not talking about a dragon here. We're talking about a spoon. So, too much. How we doing in the chat, guys? You got anything you want to say? You want to ask? Let me know. Come on. I may have to kill this. I don't know. Oh. Yeah, I think Windows is freaking out. All right, let's kill it. 12 million polys is just too much. All right, let's do this again. Man, it's going slow. Okay. Let's pull this open again. Okay. Not seeing the geometry we sculpted. Come on, I know I saved. That sucks. Oh, that sucks. It always seems like I get bit by that. All right, I'm gonna go back and do that later. You guys get the idea of what we're trying to do. And we'll start working on the flower details. Okay. Use clay strips here. Start top view. And then I want to get a sort of an idea from here where we're going to start sculpting. So I think somewhere around here and back is going to be a good area. I'll mark that with a grease pencil. And then let's get in here and play a little bit before we gotta wrap up. Give about 15 minutes. Let's draw some flowers. Okay. I'm actually going to turn off symmetry so that we can create an interesting little flower design here that is not symmetrical. We want this to be off to the side a little bit. So I'm going to zoom out and lower the detail size so that way I'm still maintaining that same approximate detail size from this distance. And I just want to get a faint impression of kind of where we're headed with this model. So I'm going to start with, let's go to clay strips. And starting from here on back, we want to build this up so that we're getting a bigger and a bigger, sort of shape back here for this flower patch. And it goes right back into this area over here. So it's one of the few non-symmetrical details on this, this spoon. And by the time we get back here, it's we're blending into that shape that you saw me model a minute ago, which I'm now gonna have to redo because of Blender crashing. All right, so I'm gonna go back even further, just kind of mess all of this up back here. So we're getting, this is all gonna be covered by that geometry. So we can kind of play with the underlying shape a little bit to help us out. So we want that to bulge up back here. So don't want to get too far into that because that will be symmetrical, but anyways. So once again, start picking out some of these smaller shapes for these flowers. So play here a little bit with the way this is shaped. Got, let's see, a little patch here. See, I don't know why sometimes it feels like it's not responding until you move the cursor pretty far. Anyways, it's weird. So taper this in a little bit. That is so annoying. If anybody knows any idea why that happens, my tablet won't respond sometimes when I'm trying to sculpt. I have to move like a certain distance, and I kind of wonder if there is a setting I can change that will help fix that. Okay. So if you see me pausing, I'm looking at the reference on the other screen to kind of block these flowers in. Trying to kind of follow the pattern that is there, but it's fairly complex and I don't have a great angle of it, so I'm just doing my best to imply some of that detail. I could use some kind of image mask. What I'm trying to do for this this stream and this project is work on my my hand sculpting skills. So it would be a lot faster using image mask. But I'm trying to develop my hand-eye coordination for some of this stuff. But yes, I would highly recommend using one of those for a quicker way to go about doing this. You got any projects you're working on right now? Let's see if we can do a flower in here. So we got a little bit of a indentation right here. Zoom in a little bit here. You developing a game or something? Oh yeah. I came up on Maya, so I get it. Blender's cool. There's a lot of changes happening right now too with the software. It's going to be updated later this year, so it's going to be good. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, check out some of the Blender 2.8 developers videos on YouTube. I've been watching all their updates, and every day now they're releasing sneak peeks at what is coming later this fall. So definitely check that out. There we go. All right, much better. All right, so there we go. Yeah, Eevee's gonna be kick-ass. I really hope that it establishes a nice workflow for game assets and stuff like that, so people aren't having to switch over to, Marmoset, or, if it can interface well with industry standard stuff, like Substance, it's going to help out quite a bit, and I've been really impressed. So. Okay, let's go ahead and just get all of this blocked in first. Then I'll come back and that's the key here. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay. I don't know if the detail is just so fine that it's like chugging, but I wouldn't think so. Okay. Too much. It's better. Getting a little too high poly. Okay. Okay. All right, guys, that's going to be about it for me tonight. So one little flower. All right. So there's obviously quite a bit left to do. But you can see kind of zoomed back, we're adding extra details on the edges of the spoon handle on the end. Zooming in further, we're going to get tighter and tighter until we get all the way down to this detail level. And then you obviously saw what we did to the front of the spoon there. So yeah, in the end, we will, you know, end up with something that hopefully resembles a spoon that is sort of circa 1920s sterling silver or something like that. Currently, it's going through a bit of an ugly phase, but that's all right. So let's smooth shade this real fast. And then let's switch back to this so you can kind of see it. But you can see some of the details we did here. The details for the front of the spoon, it's actually really distracting with that on, so something more like that. And then as we got towards the back, we're gonna do some more flourishes and stuff like that. So yeah, tonight was all about the spoon and working on some of those and how to sculpt in Blender. I see your comment, Dave. You got here late. Can you explain a little bit more about what you were doing as you go along? So I'm wrapping up the stream right now, but basically this is going to be recorded straight to the channel, so you can go catch up if you want to watch it. And I'll be streaming tomorrow night and Friday, same time, 7 p.m. Central. So we can pick back up where I left off and go into more detail. And as I sculpt, I'll try to do some commentary and let you guys know what's happening and what's going on. But right now I'm working on, for those of you who are just tuning in or came in late, I'm working on a 3D illustration. So the spoon, the little bit of it you see right here is kind of what we're getting into in this project. So we're currently in the modeling phase. We're doing quite a bit of these objects, and we'll circle back around and do textures. And like I said, at the beginning of the stream, I'll be doing a course on this that you can be a part of. So one more thing for anybody who wasn't here when I was going over it in the beginning, I'm going to share a little bit about what I'm kind of doing this for. So I just launched a new training platform. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Brandon Hicks, and this is sort of a new channel, but I've been in the Blender scene for, you know, more than 10 years, and been teaching professionally for 3 or 4 now. And I've got several courses online, and this is a new training platform that I've just launched called the Orange Guild. So this is theorangeguild.com, and if you go here, you can sign up to be on our mailing list. You'll get a free month of access, so you can trial all my stuff. And then after that, if you want to be a member, it's $19 a month or $199 for the whole year. And basically you get access to every single piece of training that I come out with. So if we go over to the training section, you have a fundamentals course that I put together a few years back, which will be updated, but I'm waiting for 2.8 to come out because I don't want to, you know, jump the gun and tell you guys a bunch of stuff that's just going to outdate itself as soon as I release the course. So that will be updated as soon as I get around to it when 2.8 is released. This is the project we're actually working on right now. I already showed in this course how to model using subdivision surface modeling techniques, how to model these 3 or 4 objects that you see in the scene. This was actually just updated. So that's a cool course you can be part of. And then I have 2 courses here on modeling a concept car that I came up with. So this is all about the modeling, and this is all about shading and cycles. So if you're into cycles, this will kind of be helpful in terms of getting you into understanding how nodes work and setting up more complex materials and things like that. So these are the current courses I have. Streaming is going to kind of get me back into the community for right now, and then I'll be releasing more courses as we go. And so if you want to be a part of this, you can join the membership, and then you'll get access to all of these 24/7 access for $19 a month. And you can also buy them individually. It's a lot more expensive that way, so I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend just getting the guild membership. But anyways, so that's my little plug. Thank you for tuning in. As I said, I'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, and I'll either go for 1 or 2 hours, depending on what's going on. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys checking out the stream. And leave me a comment, even if it's not live, and I'll circle back around and answer if you have any questions. And I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you tomorrow night.